This conference will now be recorded.
We are asking that you please not unmute yourself at any time during the presentation, or we may have to mute you or have you re-enter the meeting. To provide clarity, this is an information session. This information session is an opportunity for the city, VDOT, and the consultant to share information with the public. This is a City of Fredericksburg project, and VDOT is administering it on the city's behalf. So we thank VDOT for its support on this effort. This information session's purpose is to allow the city to provide the public information regarding the Twin Lake Kensington Bike Ped Connector project. This information session, again, is not a public hearing, but we want to make sure that everyone on the call receives details on this project, which is why we're hosting it in this manner. As you heard a second ago, this meeting is being recorded so that people that are not able to make this call today are able to come back and hear the information that was shared. So we will make sure that it's available for you to share with your friends and neighbors. During this presentation, we're asking you to listen as we share this information on this very important project because we've got some good quality information and details to share. So what our team will be doing today is providing information on how this project fits in the big picture as far as citywide plans and information. So this includes our comp plan and pathways plan, and that will be talked about by Michael Craig shortly. We will give an overview of the design of a particular project segment. This is a conceptual design, and this conceptual design is specific to the adjacent neighborhood, which is in the Kensington community. We understand that participants may have questions or comments at the end of the session. However, as this is an information session, we're requesting that all comments and questions be submitted by email. This will ensure a couple of things: that the speakers are able to present all the information that they have included in their presentation today to all the participants on the call, and that the city can give responses that can be provided to all participants on the call and shared as applicable. We want to make sure that we're mindful of your time this evening, so we'll get started right away with this information session. So you can see the agenda on your screen. I've already provided the overview of the public information session overview. The presenters on the call today will be myself, Jamie Jackson, Director of Transit and Transit Development, Transit and Transportation for the City of Fredericksburg, Michael Craig, who's the Senior Planner for the City of Fredericksburg, and Mitchell Johnson, one of the consultants on this project from WRA. We will then move into a brief overview of the project where I'll provide a brief summary of the project and really how we got here today. I'll then turn it over to Mr. Craig, who will talk about how the pathways and trails fit into the city's comprehensive plan and pathways plan, and how this particular project, the Kensington Twin Lakes Bike Ped Connector, is that particular piece of the puzzle of connectivity for the city. A few months ago, city staff and VDOT had a meeting with the Kensington Neighborhood HOA. Therefore, we are focusing on a particular segment of the project around the Kensington neighborhood to provide a conceptual plan of the project and give the public insight into what this actually looks like at a conceptual level, what we are actually doing. We are also following up on feedback from the HOA on how this project fits into the overall city plan. So you'll hear a lot about how this particular project fits into the overarching plan for the city. And that was based on the conversation we had with the HOA. What does this look like? Mr. Johnson will follow up with a brief overview of the reference segment and how this conceptually looks within this type of plan. And this will be a high-level conceptual overview and comments. We won't get into the technical details of the engineering drawings because we're just not quite there yet. Again, we're still at the planning and preliminary design phase. And finally, I'll conclude with comments and provide instructions on how you can provide feedback on what you hear today. So I'd like to start with this particular plan and document. So The City Council plans for 2036 and vision statement and priorities includes conceptually what we're going to be talking about today, and specifically talking about the Kensington Twin Lakes Bike Ped Connector. I've included this particular reference at the beginning of this slide because it includes the City Council's priorities, which speaks to key items, which are pathways and trails, and ultimately linking neighborhoods throughout the city. This particular project is specifically included in City Council priority number 13, working with neighborhoods to advance multimodal connectivity across the city. As you can see in the summary, distinct and linked neighborhoods includes Fredericksburg neighborhoods have their own identities, and they are also linked to the whole community by a network of sidewalks and trails. The city is a cohesive community of caring, involved, and dedicated residents. Residents value the safe neighborhoods in which they live. They know their neighborhoods. They encounter neighbors of all ages and backgrounds in the common social areas provided by public pathways and parks. And this is why the Twin Lakes Kensington Bike Ped Connector was considered as a project. So specifically going into a project summary, again, this is an overview of the project, just to give background to the public and the community of what we're trying to do here. This project will extend the planned multi-use trail along the north side of Lafayette Boulevard from the Telegraph Hill development to Twin Lake Drive. It will construct a multi-use trail from the VCR trail to Springwood Drive and include one new bike repair station near the parking lot and VCR trailhead at Allen Springs Park. This trail connection would provide a new bicycle pedestrian connection to the trail system in Fredericksburg and to the Fredericksburg Amtrak VRE train station. In this project, the city is trying to expand the reach of the VCR trail in Fredericksburg, provide more bike pedestrian connections between neighborhoods and the Fredericksburg VRE station. It meets the Fredericksburg area regional need by helping to link activity centers and supports walkability and reducing the reliance on vehicular traffic. This project makes it safer and more enjoyable for people to bike or walk in the Fredericksburg area. Ultimately, as a result of this project, the city will offer more mode choice options for its residents. The source of funding for this particular project is Smart Scale. This is a competitive grant program that helps localities fund projects that meet critical transportation needs in Virginia. This project was awarded funding for its ability to link activity centers, support walkability, and reduce reliance on vehicular traffic. The image and graphic that you see in this presentation is actually the image that was submitted as part of the Smart Scale grant application process. So now I will turn it over to Mike Craig regarding the City of Fredericksburg Comprehensive Plan, Pathways Plan, and the Twin Lake Kensington Bike Ped Connector, and he'll bring it all together. Mike?
Thank you, Jamie. I'm Mike Craig, the Senior Planner here with the City of Fredericksburg. And if I could have the next slide, please. I'd like to just show you all this graphic, which is the state of the city's trail network. We are a 10 square mile city that has a robust trails network, a product of years of planning and much investment at the local, state, and federal level. You'll see a couple of line types on the screen. And if you look, before you look at the individual types, at the general pattern, you'll see that the city's trail network extends from the city into Stafford County in the east, and then has three legs that go east to west, and then it has different legs that go north and south, and those connections really tie the city together into a multimodal transportation system that has been a goal for a very long time. The purple and black lines are trails that are built. The blue dashed lines are those that are planned. The blue and pink line segment, labeled Kensington Connector, is shown along the Lafayette Boulevard Trail. It's being highlighted now. And the interesting thing about that area of the city is that a portion of the Lafayette Boulevard Trail has been built with the Telegraph Hill development. So the Kensington connector piece that we're talking today is the next physical construction of that trail that is going to extend south down Lafayette Boulevard into Spotsylvania County. If I could have the next slide, please. The planning for our trail network occurs at a pretty high level and is adopted as city policy in the comprehensive plan, and that's what you see on the screen here. So all those pathway segments that are implemented either through funding applications or through individual project construction, they all originate in this designation, which is the city's shared use path network and the comprehensive plans, the vision for how the trail network will be developed. And number 5, extending from the downtown area south along Lafayette Boulevard, is the Lafayette Boulevard Trail. And this has been a long-standing item in the comprehensive plan. And as we showed on the previous slide, is currently being constructed in different places. And if I could have the next slide, please. The second, more detailed component of the planning process is the city's pathways plan. This is developed by a committee called the Pathways Committee, listing individual projects. And this plan generally serves as a feeder for the type of funding opportunities that are available to the city, like Smart Scale. So Smart Scale is a state pot of money that can be allocated to individual projects, but you have to go through an application process and you have to have some level of planning. So this is the Kensington connector element adopted into the city's pathways plan. This was adopted as part of the update. It may have predated the update that was last approved in 2018. If I could have the next slide, please. A future project will be application for the final extension of the Lafayette Boulevard Trail from Twin Lakes Drive south to the city line. Spotsylvania County is working on applications for their portion of the trail that would continue south to Harrison Road, but this is the other element that the city is planning for this component of our trail network within the city to complete the Lafayette Boulevard Trail. These components are envisioned to be 10-foot wide asphalt shared use paths so that they can serve both the pedestrian and bike community. And that is what I have to share with you all this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Definitely appreciate that information and providing that connectivity of how this project actually fits into the bigger picture. One of the items that you referenced was the Pathways Committee. The Pathways Committee is still an active committee within the city. So if anyone on the call is interested in the Pathways Committee, they can also email me at the end of this presentation. You'll see my contact information. But ultimately, the goal of that segment or that piece of this presentation was to provide information to the public that when we are creating and or developing plans for projects, we're not looking at them in isolation. They're, again, part of this transportation network for the city. So now I will turn it over to Mr. Mitchell Johnson. He is a consultant with WRA, and he will be speaking to a particular slide related to a conceptual design for a typical segment or a segment within the that's adjacent to the Kensington community. And then we'll also provide any additional information regarding the slide that you'll see shortly. So I will unmute you and I will have Mr. Johnson speak.
Thank you, Jamie. So let me just go over briefly really the footprint of the project as it crosses across the Kensington development from St. Paul Street down to Twin Lake Drive. As Mike mentioned, the trail networks are intended to be 10-foot wide asphalt trails that's separated from the roadway curb by a grass strip. And that's going to be a consistent model for the whole network. If we start on the right side of the sheet that you see, it's not depicted here because the image was obtained prior to its construction, but we've got the Telegraph Hill development has recently widened Lafayette Boulevard and constructed a trail that comes up to St. Paul Street. Our project will match that trail directly across St. Paul Street, and the dark gray wedge shape you see is a widening of Lafayette Boulevard that will fill in the ditch area where the roadway narrows next to St. Paul Street to provide a consistent cross section, and it will have curb and gutter after construction. As it comes around that slight curve there, it's passing in front of the Kensington Hills subdivision within the right of way. It tees into Kensington Place with curb ramps that bring the level down to the road to provide a riding surface. The project includes sidewalk connections up into the existing sidewalks of the Kensington Place roadway. And as we continue to the south, the same typical section comes along to Springwood Drive. It crosses Springwood Drive, and that will carry on across to Twin Lake Drive. Going south from that point will be a future project, one of the ones that Mike mentioned. The blue item that you see adjacent to Springwood Drive is a stormwater management feature intended to reduce the runoff from the project caused by the addition of impervious area. And that is intended to be a fully underground system. It's shown as a pipe. It will be underground, so the only thing visible from that system will be a couple of manhole lids and an outlet structure, basically an end section similar to what's in the field there today at that location. So there will not be a large pond. The project, as it passes across the Kensington subdivision, lies entirely within the right-of-way that's there. And if you can go to the next slide that shows a zoom in on that cross section that was on the bottom of the earlier slide, just kind of shows you what this will look like if you're standing on the roadway looking down it. We can see where we're widening the road a little bit, providing the curb and gutter. We're showing a 5-foot grass strip, which is as narrow as it can be made and still meet federal shared use path guidelines. Within that strip will be a relocation of the light poles that are within that area. They will be relocated to be 1.5 feet off of the back of the curb and gutter, evenly spaced all the way down the road to light the project. There'll be an offset then to the trail, 10 feet wide, and then a 2-foot space to the break in the slope where the grading will catch up to the existing ground, whether it goes up or down. This is exaggerated image. The situation in the field won't be this drastic. At its narrowest point, adjacent to the Kensington Hills subdivision, the right-of-way line appears right where it does on the image here. It is 2 feet off the edge of the trail. So that's a kind of a description of the cross section of the trail and how it lies on the land in front of the project, in front of the subdivision.
All right. Thank you, Mitch, for that overview of that particular segment of the project and providing some insight into conceptually what that design would look like. So one of the questions that you may have right now is, can we see more? Is there more information? At this time in the project, we are still in the preliminary phase of this work and this effort. A lot of items have not been finalized, and when I say finalized, that just means drawn. We are in the draft phase, as you can see on the previous slide, that we are still working towards being able to provide design and information, and we're doing a lot of information gathering at this time. So whether you're part of the Twin Lakes area, the Kensington area, there's still more information that we need to do as far as the city and working with VDOT, the consultant, and members of the community that are adjacent to this area. So if you're wondering why you haven't seen anything more detailed, it's because we still have some additional work to do. But we wanted to come to the public and provide information on this project because there's been a gap in the amount of time where we have connected with different areas within the community. And this it gives us an opportunity to provide just a reintroduction to the public of the project that as it stands today, and kind of how we plan to move forward in the engagement process of this particular project. So next steps. So in the spring of 2022, we are looking to work with VDOT, who is assisting us with administering this project, on public engagement and comments and details of the design plan. So what I mentioned before, what does this project look like? How does it impact my drive to work, my exit out of my community? What do potential options for pathways look like? What do impacts to sidewalks look like? Those are the things that we are currently working on, and we hope to come back in the spring and actually come out with the community or come to the community to get feedback, comments, and get any information so that we can use, because at this time, of course, no plans are final. This is literally us going through the process of making sure that as we build projects and or look to build projects, that we are engaging the public to make sure it's a project that the city and all of those who would be touching this particular effort have comments and feedback on. So there's more information to come. Just in case anyone is interested in getting the full details and documents of what was actually submitted as part of this project, they are on the smartscale.org website. You can look it up by the project name, and this will give you what was submitted for the project and what impacts it will have on the area and how it was scored and awarded. The preliminary design and engineering drawings, those will come as we advance towards the public engagement process to provide more details of what this type of project would actually look like. So those are literally, I would say, a more in-depth view of the slide that Mitch provided. So that will be forthcoming soon as we enter or work towards that spring 2022 public hearing. So if you're wondering where else will my voice be heard, and where else I'll be able to provide comments and request adjustments or changes, or provide basically real-time feedback, that will be one of the opportunities. And we will be providing, as soon as it's available, the date and time of the public hearing. My assumption, barring any impacts related to the current pandemic, is that this particular hearing will be in person. Again, we will work towards that as we get closer to that particular date. And finally, as we move forward in this process, we still want to hear from you today. We don't want to get all the way to design phases where you feel that, hey, I haven't really been able to provide information. I've received several comments already from the community, including the HOA and members of the public through the city's public comment portal. But what you can do, if you have comments or questions or need more information regarding today's presentation, you can email me directly. Again, my name is Jamie Jackson. My email address, and I'll spell it out since this is a public forum, jtjackson jtjackson@fredericksburgva.gov. I'm requesting so that we can make sure that we include this information in the project file and/or respond accordingly. Please put in the subject line Twin Lakes Kensington Bike Ped Connector. We thank everyone for being on the call. There are several members from the project team, including city staff and VDOT staff, who have been a part of this process. And it's a process that will continue. This is one of about 3 pedestrian projects that the city is looking to progress, and public involvement, public comment to make sure we are building the city that everyone who lives here, works here, and travels here, especially with the pathways and pedestrian connections, meets the needs of the public. So we thank everyone for their time. I will be ending this recording, but do ask that you jot down my email address and provide any comments that you have to today's presentation at your convenience. And also, if you would like to review this presentation, we'll have it posted as soon as we can. But thank you for your time, and I will be ending this public information session on the Twin Lakes Kensington Bike Ped Connector. Thank you, everyone.